Nonprofits are businesses. The word nonprofit is a tax status.
Welcome to Agency for Change, a podcast from KidGlov that brings you the stories of changemakers who are actively working to improve our communities. In every episode, we'll meet with people who are making a lasting impact in the places we call home.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Agency for Change podcast. This is Lynn Weinman, President and Chief Strategist of KidGlov. On this episode, we are joined once again by Danette O'Connell of the Nonprofit Cooperative. We're diving into social entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about what it really means, why it matters, and how innovative leaders are using it to drive real impact. Danette, you have been a regular here. Welcome back to the podcast.
I know. It is wonderful to be here once again.
I love it. So, Danette, even though you have joined us on the podcast several times, I know most of our listeners have heard one or more of your episodes. For our newer listeners, I'd love for you to tell us more about the Nonprofit Cooperative.
Okay, wonderful. So the Nonprofit Cooperative is a membership organization where we provide free resources to nonprofits. And that comes into the form of training, collaboration, networking. We match you to mentors and mentees. We vet for-profits that serve the nonprofits. They're called vetted members, as you are one. And we vet them so that nonprofits don't have to. So we vet for free, their services are not. So, but we try to do everything that we can for nonprofits, and it doesn't make a difference what size you are. You could be just starting out. You could be over 100 million in revenue. We serve all nonprofits across the United States and beyond, and we are happy to serve them.
I love that. Danette, I just want to make sure people didn't miss that. You used, I think, everybody's favorite four-letter word, which was FREE. Everything you do is free. That's fantastic.
Everything we do is free. To
nonprofits. That's 100% true. That's true. For us for-profits, we expect to pay something in return for what we get.
Yes.
So, Danette, you also, just before we jumped on, told me some exciting news about the Nonprofit Cooperative. You want to highlight how many members you are serving now?
We are serving over 9,000 nonprofit associates across the United States and beyond. So majority, like 95% are here in the United States, but we do have a few that are abroad. And we are happy to serve all of them. We just came off of the Nonprofit Fundraising Summit. So we always have some good growth after those. So it's very, very exciting. We ended up getting over 12,000 registrants at the summit. I hope all of you or some of you had the opportunity to join it. If not, don't worry, we have one in the fall.
I love it. I love it. Danette, I even sat in on, you invited me and I got to speak on a panel, which I loved. But I too, during the 2 days of the summit, there were some fantastic speakers, some great information. So all of the nonprofit listeners, and I know we have a lot of nonprofit leaders in our audience, go check out the Nonprofit Cooperative and look for their boot camp that's coming in the fall, right?
We do. So we have the summit in September and we moved this boot camp to the fall. So the boot camp will be deep dives. So a lot of what you get at summits and even our trainings, they're 1 hour trainings. But the boot camps are going to be 2 hour deep dive into each topic. And it's not going to be just fundraising. It's going to be we're going to talk about HR, we're going to talk about fundraising, technology, AI. So we will have all different topics, but we'll give you something to do. And, so we're going to teach you not only just how to do a high level budget, but we're going to teach you to dive into that budget.
Yeah.
And we also have finance. and teach you how to do it and where do you pull the information and where do you get that and how do you present it to your board and how do you do the reporting to the board. So we're going to have all of that in 2 hours. And so it's going to be a mini crash course. 2 hours is a long time to
Right.
really learn something, but we didn't want to make it high level. We interviewed or we surveyed our nonprofits, and that's what they were requesting. We had this last year, they loved it, but we didn't go as deep as we're going this year. They said that was great, but go deeper. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we don't want to make them 3 hours. So we figured
Right.
we'd do 2.5 hours, but we have 2 breaks in there. So it'll be a little over 2 hours.
That's
So,
fantastic.
and Lynn, we had talked about this. You also do one like that.
Yeah.
So a deep dive into the topics. You can learn so much more by doing that.
100%. I love when you have what's great about 2 hours is it gives you a chance, not only from a speaker standpoint, it gives you a chance not only to share how to's, but to take a little bit of time at least to let people jump in and try it, right? Like, hey, here's how I like to set up a brand strategy. Here's how I like to set up a target audience persona, and you can start filling out the tool and start using the tool. Because sometimes, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I have done this where I've gone to a seminar, I've learned the things, I've nodded my head and said, yep, 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 yep. But then when I actually get into it, I have questions. And I think that's where you get the value of the longer sessions and the deep dive. You realize kind of where your questions are as you go. Well, you still have access to somebody you can ask. So, well, with great programming like that, I know you're going to blow into the 10,000 number of members before we know it. And, as I'm reflecting on this, Danette, when you think about every nonprofit you serve is making an impact with their group of people. And when they impact the people they serve, that then impacts the people that are around the people they serve. And then when you multiply that by 9,000, soon to be 10,000, I mean, you've got to feel pretty good about this organization that you founded, the Nonprofit Cooperative, and the impact it's making across the country and beyond. So congratulations and thank you to you, Danette,
Thank
for
you.
all of that hard work. Now, on top of that, if throwing summits and boot camps and organizing members and growing the membership weren't enough already, last year we had you on to talk about the cooperative joining forces with SVP New York. Can you bring us up to date on that relationship and some fun things that are going on?
Yeah, so SVP New York City is growing very rapidly, as fast as the cooperative. The SVP is growing just as fast, and we have a in-person event. So if you are in New York City, we do have a social on April 13th at Idealist. All you have to do is, and we'll have my contact information, is reach out to me and I can get you the link to register for that. So I think it's on our website too. So we're very, very excited about that event. We will be having them quarterly. So we have some in-person events. We just finished up Wednesday is our board meeting. So we will finalize our grants for spring.
Wow.
So, and hopefully we will have one in the summer. So we're trying to get 3 a year. So that's my target for this year, is to have 3
Fantastic.
rounds. So, but we have a lot of new partnerships that is making that possible too. So we will be having an open call in June for a partner of ours that's giving 200,000 away.
Wow,
So I know.
200,000. Okay. I'm sure you have just perked up some people's ears.
All unrestricted funds.
Fantastic. So tell us more about this grant cycle, and or if there is a link, we will make sure to get it into the show notes for this episode of the podcast.
So the wonderful thing about being part of the nonprofit cooperative is that you will only hear about our grant openings if you are a nonprofit associate.
Mm,
Again, it is free to join because we do not broadcast our open grants to the public. We only broadcast them to our nonprofits under the nonprofit cooperative. So we have a partnership with the two organizations. So we have them register so that we can vet them just to make sure that everyone's nonprofits. And then when there's an available grant, I put it out there. And then you have 10 days. We only
wow.
keep our grant cycle open for 10 days just because we get a lot of applications in those 10 days. So
Yeah.
last time we got 469
Wow.
applications. So you can see that it's very competitive, but we are getting more and more and more grants. So this one in June will be a lot of grants that we'll be giving.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations on that, Danette. And once again, we will get those links into the show notes. So, Danette, I want to switch gears a little bit because I know one topic that you are really passionate about is social entrepreneurship. And
Absolutely.
yep, I think a lot of us hear that term and it's a term that's being used more and more lately. But we may all kind of have a different idea or thought of what it means. I'd love to hear how you define that term, social entrepreneurship.
So, I always talk to the nonprofits and let them, just to express to them that they are running a business.
Yeah,
So if you have a for-profit, they're called entrepreneurs. For nonprofits, they're called social entrepreneurs.
got it.
But one of the things that a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, they don't understand that nonprofits are businesses. They're just a different type of business. That's why you
Right.
have to file your taxes every year.
Yep.
We're just more regulated than the for-profits are. So, and I always say, which is my quote of the day, Lynn,
Oh, you're giving
we're
it to us
we're
early,
giving it
but
to
we'll
us
come we'll
early.
come back to it, Danette. You know I'm going to ask you
Okay.
this question.
Yes. So I always say nonprofits are a business. The nonprofit is a tax status.
Ah, yeah.
So
Yeah. Right. I mean, all of my friends who I know that are leaders of nonprofits, they still have to make payroll. They still
yeah,
have to provide training. They still have to have office supplies and insurance. Sometimes they have to have more insurance than some of us
they
for
do.
profits, right? So all of those things have to balance out. But I'm thinking of a recent podcast episode we had on Agency for Change, which was Charlie Weshy from Neighbor Works of Lincoln, Nebraska. And he is working to form a land trust. He's combining with the energy suppliers in the community. He's doing all kinds of things that are entrepreneurial things, new innovative things. And he, in my mind, is someone I've talked to recently that I would say is definitely a social entrepreneur. I would also say, Danette, you are a social entrepreneur, right? Like
I
you
absolutely
have
am.
built this nonprofit cooperative from scratch. I mean, you truly are a founder, just like any other startup founder, and yet you are doing it with the nonprofit status for nonprofits, which I think is really cool. So talk to me about then why is social entrepreneurship or this nonprofit entrepreneurship so important right now?
So one of the things that I always like to express to nonprofits is diversify your funding, right?
Yeah,
And so when you have a business, you could be selling one gadget, two gadget, three gadget. That's because they diversify their funding. And so I teach a social entrepreneur class, and that's one of the things that we really talk about for sustainability of nonprofits is to diversify your funding.
yeah,
And also something that's very dear to my heart and I cannot express more is have a plan. So
yeah,
I always say to nonprofits, would you drive across the United States without your Google Maps?
right.
And people are like, no way.
That would be
Well,
a bad idea.
it would be crazy to do that. Well, running a nonprofit without a plan is just as crazy,
Yeah.
right? You have to know where you are now, where you want to go, and how you're going to get there, right? So you may not have Google Maps to tell you how to get there. So you have to create the plan on how to get there. You can call it a strategic plan, you can call it a growth plan, you can call it a marketing plan, you can call it whatever you want,
Right.
just so that it measures where you are now, where you're going to go, and how you're going to get there. And that plan on how you're going to get there includes your how am I going to fundraise? How am I going to market? How am I going to be on social media? Who am I targeting? Who do I want to serve? What
Yeah.
kind of impact am I going to make? Whatever gets measured gets done. So you have to measure it. So, I can't express that more to more to nonprofits because it's really, really important to do that. And diversifying your funding, in today's day and age, as we all know, for the
Yeah.
people who lost federal funding, and by the way, federal funding is back, but for the ones who lost it, a lot of nonprofits were lost because of that,
Yeah.
because they did not diversify their funding. They all depended on, they were getting plenty of money from the government. So when the
Right.
government said no more, they lost their nonprofit, which is so sad that that happened. But that's the importance of diversifying.
Yeah.
So don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's
Yeah.
really, really important for that.
Danette, I want to tie back to also the idea of having a plan. There's a project that KidGlov and the Nonprofit Cooperative are partnering on, and that is our end of year performance research for end of year
Yes.
fundraising efforts. And I just peeked at the data yesterday, and one of
Yay.
the key threads, well, I haven't even had a chance to tell you here, so you're hearing it, you're all hearing it here first.
For the first time,
But
live, here we go.
one of the key threads for those who had a 20% or more increase in what they raised in 2025 over 2024, one of the common threads was having a plan, right? And there were so many people who said, we just ran out of time, so we just updated the thing we did last year and sent it again, and those who actually planned it out did better. And so the old adage proved itself true once again. You can either, fail to plan and you will plan to fail, right? And so having a plan,
Absolutely.
regardless of what aspect of your business or nonprofit is really important. So all right, I'd like to tie social entrepreneurship then back to things you're working on with both the Nonprofit Cooperative and SVP New York. I know you have the grant program, and I know you have the boot camps coming up. You just did the summit. But what are some of the other things you're working on to help propel social entrepreneurship forward?
So we are going to have a series of training sessions and workshops, as we call them. But these are just going to be focused on social entrepreneurs. So how to create a plan. And in the boot camp, we're also going to have a 2-hour session on how to create your plan. And it doesn't have to be long. People say,
Right,
wow, I don't want to create a 3-year plan. Then don't, because
right,
they're fairy tales, right?
right.
Let's concentrate the next 12 months, right?
Yeah,
And that is all. Take baby steps, because plans can be a little overwhelming, and I totally get that. So create a small one, create
yeah,
a 1-year plan, right? But just know where you're going and how are you going to fundraise? What is your plan to do? What is your marketing plan? What is
right,
your story that you're going to tell? What is your outreach going to be? So like all of that goes into those plans. So we're going to teach that. We're
great.
also going to be teaching budgeting, because a lot of people still don't understand how to do budgeting. And if they do, they don't understand how to report out to the board. That's what we're
Yeah,
finding. I'm not saying that everybody is like this. So we want to make sure that we take a deeper dive into that. So it's all, and we're going to talk about the threats to
yeah,
entrepreneurs. So that is insurance. You have to have D&O insurance for your board. It's really, really, really important. If you buy no other insurance, buy that one. But make sure that you are well protected. If you are going to do an event, it's really important that you have insurance for that. Because, just like a for-profit, an
Right.
insurance claim or a lawsuit against you will put you out. And
Right.
so you have to make sure that you are protected just like, any other. And then the other threat that I wanted to go over is cybersecurity. Some
Yes.
nonprofits think because, oh, well, we're small or we're not big enough to get, a threat. Look, organizations that have $50,000 can be threatened. They don't know what you have. They just want to go and take it away from you,
Right.
right? And you don't have to be over $100 million. And some people say, well, why would they target nonprofits? They target everybody
Right.
who is incorporated. They may not even know that you're a nonprofit. So
Right.
I want to make sure, I'm going to leave that up to the experts, but I want to make sure that we cover those topics.
It occurs to me too that if you were starting up a for-profit and you were in a startup program or an incubator or a College of Business accelerator program, those are exactly the things you would learn, but they would be
Absolutely.
skewed for-profits. So what I love about this is you're doing all of this training for social entrepreneurs through that nonprofit lens with people who are experienced and have done this work with nonprofits, because I think that's one thing today too. And I am a big user of AI tools and large language models. And every once in a while, I'll hear somebody say, I had AI create my plan. And I always think, that is not the place. That is not the place to use AI. You can find lots of inexpensive tools there, but go to the experts who have done this before when you're thinking about something so important as your overarching plan. So I love that.
Yeah, and you have to make sure that, I mean, if you've used AI for years and years and years and it really knows you, you might
Maybe.
get away with that. But please, everyone, don't ever create a document in AI without going through it word for word for word, because
Right.
somebody's going to read that word for word.
Right.
And if they know that it was written by AI and not you,
Yeah.
they may not believe it as much, because look,
Right.
we're in a day and age where people are really doubting AI. I mean, you go on Facebook, you don't know if those videos are real or not real, right?
Right.
You don't know if the stories are real or not real. I mean, they make stuff up just to make it up so that they get clicks, right? So, people are really questioning AI authenticity.
Yeah.
So just make sure that you read over really, really well if
Yeah.
you're going to use it. But you have to use AI for years for it to get to understand
Yeah.
you.
Once you lose that trust,
Yep.
it's hard, if not impossible, to get it back. So,
And look, if you're creating a plan or you're creating a grant, this is even more for grants, and they
yes,
think that your AI wrote it, guess who's not getting a
you're
grant?
out. You're
You're
out.
out.
Yeah.
That's why we have video applications, so you can't fake them.
Oh, nice. Impressive. That's a really good idea. So, Danette, I'd love to hear a story about a social entrepreneur you've worked with who really embodies this work.
Yeah, well, we actually have several of them who have come through our past training and has come back and said, I can't believe I never had a plan.
Wow.
And just to make sure, and I teach this also, when you create that plan, do not put it on your shelf, right?
Right.
Report out to your board, hold your board
Yes.
responsible to it, hold yourself responsible to it. And so they did that. They created a plan where they report out to their board like we do on a quarterly basis. And that's held them accountable to make sure that they keep up with everything that they're doing, their timeline, everything. And then when your board is holding you responsible to it, because you're reporting out to them, it's a good way not to put a plan on the shelf to collect dust, because that's the problem
Yeah.
with some plans is people create them and then they go on the shelf. They're working documents. So this
Right.
nonprofit came back to me. We gave them all the tools. And after a year, they're like, we love it. Our board loves it. and they have been able to grow because of that, because what gets measured gets done,
Yeah.
right? Because then you're holding yourself responsible. We want to raise this much, in the first quarter, and these are all the different ways that we're going to do it, right? This is our messaging, this is our branding, this is
Yes.
how we're going to do it. And then it gets done that way, and so having those plans, or I can't express how
Yeah.
important they are. And
I
if you're not familiar with how to do them, there's plenty of people within our ecosystem that can help you create them, or you can just come to one of our trainings and I'd be more than happy to teach you how to do it.
That's fantastic. Danette, I have to say that since you brought that up, KidGlov is obviously a member of the Nonprofit Cooperative, and I am very proud to serve on the board. But one of my favorite aspects of the cooperative is meeting the other members and working with the other members who serve the nonprofits. I'd have to say I've formed some very strong relationships and learned quite a bit from the member organizations who do other aspects of the work than I do. And that's just such a great community to be a part of. I'd love to
And
actually talk a little bit about if we have a for-profit listening, which I'm sure we do, that is serving the nonprofit sector, how do they become involved in the nonprofit cooperative?
all they have to do is reach out to me. The first step of vetting is talking to me first. And then we'll talk through what you do, how you do it. Are you a fit for the cooperative? And then if you are a fit, then I'll send you information and links on how to get started with us. So it is very easy to do. But I want to mention, you know, as it's really important for businesses to network, it's just as important for nonprofits to
Yes.
network. And
Yes.
not only network with the for profits, but network with each other. Collaboration is key in the nonprofit community. Nobody has competitors out there, right? We're all out there trying to make an impact on the world. So,
Yeah.
regardless of what that impact is, collaboration is a perfect way of growth. And you can go ahead and partner with another nonprofit that does the same thing or complements what you do,
Yeah.
right? Just the same way it is in the for profit. So you can collaborate with them, create an event, just like we do in the for profit. Like Linda's talking about, she's met some great people through the cooperative and other members, and they don't look at each other as competitors.
No, we
They look
really
at each
don't.
other as let you complement what I do. Even if
Right.
we have two fundraisers, everybody does something a little bit different.
That's right.
So if you're out there saving puppies, you may be doing it just a little bit different than your neighbor is.
Yeah.
And why not collaborate together and save more puppies, right? Like I always use puppies as an example
Puppies are a
because
great example. Everybody
they
loves
are.
puppies.
Everybody loves puppies. I actually love kitties. I don't know why I don't use kitties. I love
Oh,
puppies too, don't get me wrong,
yeah.
but I always have kitties.
I love it. I love it, Danette. All right. So that actually ties right into my next question because that was a great piece of advice. And I wanted to ask you, what advice would you have for somebody who's listening who has maybe been thinking about getting into the nonprofit space, is thinking about exploring social entrepreneurship? What advice can you give them?
Do your homework
Mm,
and come to our trainings to make sure this is something that you want to take on. And I understand that most nonprofits are started out of passion of something that
right.
someone went through, and that is wonderful. But if you have never run a business before, you may want to think that again and volunteer at an organization that does something very similar to what
Yes.
you are feeling, right? Entrepreneurship is not easy in the for profit or the nonprofit. I've created many businesses in the for profit
Yeah.
and the nonprofit. None of them are easy, and you will work tons and tons of hours. So just make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into
Yeah.
and understand that.
Danette, I have talked to a few nonprofits recently that were, just as you said, founded by someone with passion who had been through an experience, who was an expert in their field, but they themselves are solely funding their nonprofits out of their personal income. Or maybe they've received one grant, but now they've used that grant. And that is not, just like a business, that is not a sustainable model. You need to have a
Yeah.
plan and a diversified plan for where those funds come from.
So in the for-profit world, the highest turnover in businesses is the restaurant business,
Mm.
right? And if
It's
you
a
know that or
tough
you don't know,
business,
it's a
highly
very tough
competitive.
business.
Yeah.
Nonprofits have a higher failure rate than that. They have a very high failure rate because people don't understand how hard they are. You may start out and you may get some grants off the bat, but getting them continuously and to be able to sustain your nonprofit through that is a lot of work. And
Wow.
if you want to work 40 to 60 hours, then maybe it is for you, but that's what you're going to put in.
Right.
And people will say, well, I'll have flexible hours. Yeah, flexible 80 hours a week. Yeah,
Yeah,
pick what 80
right.
hours you want to work because that's what you're going to want to work. That's what
Yeah.
you're going to have
Yeah.
to do.
It's
It
a
takes a
startup.
lot of work and yeah, it's a startup.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of time and effort to do it.
Yep.
And people are like, I can't find grants, I can't find funding. And it's a problem, right?
Yeah.
And just because you're passionate about it doesn't mean the rest of the world is. And your friends and family may be, supportive in the beginning, but they only have so many funds also,
Yeah.
right? So then that dries out and you have to know where to go get it. How do I get grants? How do I find donors? Like all of that. You have to know all of that before you start a nonprofit. It's a
Wow.
lot of work.
It's great advice. All right. This is a good place for me to say, I've been saying we're going to put all your information in the links in the show notes, but this is where I'm going to ask you where they are. What is the best way for people to connect with you, Danette?
Through the nonprofitcooperative.org. It's spelled out the nonprofitcooperative.org, or you can email me at info@thenonprofitcooperative.org.
Perfect. That seems easy enough for us all to figure
It's,
out. And
it
you've got a
absolutely is easy.
You've got a great website that's full of resources. So check it out, become a member, tap in, and connect with Danette. All right, Danette, I'm going to ask you your least favorite question. It's my favorite question. You've already given us some insight into what your answer is on, but our listeners know I love quotes. And I know you've been on several times, so I've made you do this several times. But I'd love another Danette O'Connell original quote to inspire our listeners.
Okay. Nonprofits are businesses.
Mm,
The word nonprofit is a tax status.
I love it. Nonprofits are businesses. The word nonprofit is a tax status. So if you start that nonprofit, be
Just know it's a
prepared.
business.
Yeah, that's right.
You need
Exactly.
revenue, you're going to have expenses, and you have profit. Like it's all the same. We just call people different. So director of development is really a salesperson, right?
Yeah,
So
right. That's exactly right.
it is. That's how they translate.
Except for it is a little bit different because if you are selling something, people receive something in return. I would even challenge you to the fact that being a director of development may be one step harder because you are,
Absolutely.
asking somebody to fund a cause, right? They may never see the benefit of their donation. It may come 20 years later or 40 years later, or the impact will happen probably to someone else, not themselves. Within their community, it will definitely help, but it is an important role that is very similar. The skill set is very similar, I think, to sales. So, Danette, as we wrap up this great conversation today, I always love talking to you. What is the most important thing you would like our listeners to remember about the work that you're doing?
Everything we do is free for nonprofits.
I love it. So check it out if you're a nonprofit and you're not one of the 9,000 members that are currently enrolled.
And even if you are, come to events, come and
Yeah,
learn. I always say every training that I go to, if I learn one thing, I'm ahead of the
100%.
game.
Yeah,
So if you
100%.
come and you only learn one thing, hopefully you learn a lot more than that. But if you do, hey, you're better off than you were the hour before that.
I love it. Danette, thanks so much for coming
Thank you for
back.
having me.
And we'll look forward to the next time that you're on. You're doing important work helping nonprofits build their impact and make a positive impact on the world.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. I always love coming here and talking things out and letting the nonprofits know what's out there in the world.
We hope you enjoyed today's Agency for Change podcast. To hear all our interviews with those who are making a positive change in our communities, or to nominate a changemaker you'd love to hear from, visit KidGlov.com at KIDGLOV.com to get in touch. As always, if you like what you've heard today, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.